Hi, friends. Welcome to your podcast within. I'm so excited. This is episode 16. We're still doing the Ask the Military Authors. So this week we have Dianna Good Sky. Let me bring her on screen so she can join us. Hi, Dianna. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Dianna has an amazing story, and I'll let her tell you a little bit about it, but I wanted to introduce her. She is a retired chief, United States Navy. She's going to tell us how she got on that path and why she chose the Navy. And then she's going to tell us about her new book called Warrior Spirit Rising. She is a Native American Indian author. I have to get that right. And of course, she's a military veteran, so I definitely wanted to have her on the show. She has done so much since retirement, in addition to becoming an author. But I have asked I'm going to ask, some really key questions. So I think I'm going to save the introduction for the questions and just get right into the conversation. What do you think, Dianna?
Sounds good to me. Thank you again for having me.
All right, so let's bring up those questions and get started. All right. There we go. All right, so first question, why did you join the military and why the Navy?
All right, well, so my dad was a Navy Seabee, and when I was about 12 years old, we were going to our usual payday Navy Exchange commissary. Well, no, they went to the commissary on payday, and then we would go to the Navy Exchange on the Saturday as a family. That was a kind of our routine. And one particular day, he was stationed in Great Lakes, and so we were at the Great Lakes Exchange, and we were leaving the area, and I, for the first time in my life, saw a female, and she was in dress whites, and she was walking just on the sidewalk. And I was so struck by her poise, her pride, her I know now it was military bearing. I didn't know then, but it just hit me so deep. I was like, that's what I want to be when I grow up. That's what I want to do. And I was so enamored by her. I literally, back then the seatbelts were not a big deal. So I was able to, get up and I literally turned around and watched her out of the window as long as I could. But I mean, that woman, and I say it to this day, be careful of what you're doing on the outside. You never know who's watching you. That woman has no idea how she changed the course of my life with the decision to join the Navy just by walking.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't in your bio. I have to admit, friends, that Dianna did send me a beautiful bio, and I use a PC for the podcast, and I use my laptop as a Mac, and the bio was on the Mac. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness that we're doing a show where Dianna is a wonderful storyteller, as you will see when you read her book. But she's just such a conversationalist. So I'm glad she's sharing even more than what was in the bio. So I love that story. That's amazing. I know exactly where Great Lakes is. I grew up in Racine, Wisconsin, which is the lower part of Wisconsin, and right over the border is, of course, Illinois and then Great Lakes and whatnot. So I've been there many times.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and that's why you joined the Navy as well. Your dad was in the Navy. You saw this female who was in the Navy.
Yeah.
All right, good. So how many years did you do in the Navy? And what did you do in the Navy?
Well, I was an ocean systems technician analyst. We hunted Russian submarines. We tracked submarines, really. We did anti-submarine warfare. And I absolutely loved the job. It was great. However, things started changing in the late 80s, early 90s. And I guess the turning point for me came when I realized that, and I'd always said in boot camp, I will stay in the Navy as long as it allows me to grow. And that's kind of been a life mantra of mine, as long as it allows growth. Well, I could see things were changing very much in the military. and in the Navy as well. And then they came out with the TARA program, the early retirement program, and I was like, sign me up. So because I at the time I figured you couldn't beat being a retired chief at 33, and yeah, it was a very good move on my part. As much as I loved what I did, as much as I loved being in the Navy, it was time. It was time to move on. Yeah.
Awesome. 33. So you're really you're on a second career now.
Fourth.
Oh my gosh. So tell us a little bit about the other things you've done in between military and author, Dianna.
So once I retired, I knew I wanted to do real estate, and I loved it. I had such a great time there. It started off as an agent, and then I became an investor, and then I did that for gosh, I don't know how long I did it, 7 to 12 years, somewhere around there. But and I did very, very well. But then after that, I married a Marine, and he took me to Okinawa, and I had to give up all of that, which was fine. But when we came back, I didn't want to do that anymore. The market was different, and that's when I started network marketing. And network marketing led me. I was kind of always looking for. I didn't like the talk to everybody kind of approach that a lot of network marketers like to do. I preferred the one-to-many approach. And then I realized online was the way to do it. So then I became an online marketer. And from there, I became a coach. And the program that I was with that I really enjoyed was, I don't know if you know who Bob Proctor is, but I became a certified thinking into results coach, because I loved how it gave me the actions, and how it taught people how to reach their goals. And I really loved the routineness of that, and the format, just how it all went, how the flow was. And from there, and then I had a big event happen, and it changed everything for me. I don't know if that's in the questions, if that's.
No, but whatever you want to share, feel comfortable sharing, Dianna. It's up to you.
Okay, so I had a triggered memory from something that happened in the military, and that sent me very much spiraling out of control. And it was very weird for me too, because I didn't know how I could be so impacted from something that happened so long ago. And that actually started me on the path of not only trying to figure out the healing piece, but trying to figure out the mind, how the mind worked, and how it got me. I mean, I even considered going back to school for neuroscience for a hot minute. I mean, I was so fascinated by the trauma from the military, how I could self-contain it and be pretty successful, and then all of a sudden be stuck on the couch crying all the time. It blew my mind. And so I started studying the mind, and that led to and the healing piece of it, trying to figure all of that out. I started to learn. The first thing that I learned was like refinishing furniture. I loved the healing properties of refinishing furniture. It was just so therapeutic for me, and the traditional things weren't working for my PTSD. So I had to go outside the box. And then when I was still doing the therapeutic refinishing and everything, I was learning other things, transcendental meditation. I mean, that was a pivotal point for me. And then through all of that, then I realized that somebody mentioned to journal. And so then I started journaling.
Okay.
And that led me to where I'm at today.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. You had shared a little bit about that in another conversation we had a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing your pictures on Facebook as part of your healing journey. I think you went to Costa Rica.
Oh, yeah.
And it got me thinking, some of your posts, I think you had just started a little bit of journaling at that point. Mm-hmm. And some of your posts were just amazing, and they really resonated with me. I too suffer from I don't know if I would say suffer. I manage my PTSD from a trauma when I was 18. Mm-hmm. And now I'm reading a lot of information about post-traumatic stress growing from, you know, that experience, and instead of it becoming a trigger where you can't function, you actually can grow from it and stuff like that. I know this isn't a show about PTSD or anything like that, but I get where you're coming from. And I'm sure a lot of our military audience members probably understand as well. I hear this a lot in the military.
Yeah, and actually that's why I mentioned it, because it really took me by surprise. But through that whole process, I realized just how many veterans have something that they're dealing with, and so I like understanding that there's help, even if it doesn't come in the traditional form. I like knowing that, and I like sharing that, because each person is different, and I love that we all find our own way, but a lot of times we don't start finding our way until we realize that there is a different way.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I, like you, didn't start feeling effects, major effects, I would say. Had some early on after the trauma, but not until I'd say within the last 5 years, where I was becoming reclusive. I didn't want to go anywhere. I was, you know, like you, having these crying spells all of a sudden, and I'm like, everything's fine. What is wrong with me? You know, and just knowing to seek help. But you're right. It's such an important topic to bring up, and it's so important to get help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength, and just to be able to move forward, because you can move forward. You just have to find what works for you. And there's people out there that absolutely help. So thank you so much for bringing up that topic. I really appreciate that. And again, I know our audience who's served in the military, who are veterans, who may be retired from the military, whatever branch, I know they can understand. So thank you for bringing that up.
Sure.
Okay, so now the really exciting part, the book. We get to talk about the book. So, folks, Dianna, just so in case I don't show this at the end, because sometimes I get so excited, here's how you can find her website. She's written a book called Warrior Spirit Rising, and here's the website for that. So it takes you right to it. And actually, I want to go to the website real quick before you tell us about the story. So let me bring that up, because I just think it's so important to show people how to find it. Yes, I made the mistake last week. I had 2 amazing guests on last week. Okay, so let me make sure you guys can see it. Here's the website. There's Dianna again. We see her.
Before I decided to take away my gray, I was going to try and be all bold about it, but it didn't last.
So there's the website. You can check it out. Here's the book, so you can see what the cover looks like. If you click on this button, it'll take you to more information. Hopefully that shows up there. There we go. Should pop up here in a second. Sometimes it's a little slow. Not popping up. But anyway, folks, if you click on that link, it will take you to more information. And it'll, let's see. I don't know why it's not bringing that up. But it will take you to the actual book where you can purchase the book. Dianna, tell them where they can find the book.
The book is actually all over the place. It's on online on Amazon, Apple, Google Play, and then Amazon and Ingram Spark are the places where you could get it in print, especially if you want bulk orders. I find that I get frequent bulk orders, and they're usually for schools, and they're using them. I'm super honored that they are using the book in schools in some of their multicultural classes. And
Awesome.
because it is a combination of a story about one man, my father, but also it has a history in there that is not included in the history books about Native Americans. Hi, Ken Jones.
Hi, Ken. So Melanie Ann signed on, and we have Ken KJ. I call him KJ. Ken Jones. Hi, Ken.
But yeah, so Spark, and then so, and if you want it from, and if you want it in the library, you can actually call your library and ask them to get it, and they can get it also.
Okay, good, awesome. So I did my job. I remembered last week I had 2 wonderful guests on. I did show all of the information, and I forgot to ask one of the guests because we just got into conversation. There was 4 of us. I didn't even tell them to talk about the book. I was so excited about showing the book, telling people where they could find the book. And I thought, I didn't even ask them about the book. So I wanted to make sure I showed it. And now I want you to tell everybody why you wrote the book and a little bit about the book.
Okay. So my father, when I joined the Navy, and you read it in the intro. I love how the feel of this, like a matte cover. It's just, it feels so good. But anyway, when I decided to join the Navy, I thought my dad would be pretty proud of me and happy. And it actually was his response shocked me. And that's actually listed in the introduction. But it was like he didn't believe me at first, and but then at the end of that conversation, he said, well, if you join the Navy, I'll get sober. My dad was a very bad alcoholic, and alcohol had done much damage to our family. And imagine my surprise when in my second call home, my mom tells me my dad had checked himself into the rehab center. And I was like, oh my gosh.
So it goes back to what you were saying when you saw that Navy woman, that female in the Navy, just her action, just being her, doing what she did, made an impact. And here you are, showing your dad.
Yeah.
And it made an impact. Amazing.
Or so I thought.
Okay.
But anyway, so when she told me that he checked in, that's what I thought. I was like, oh my gosh, he followed through. But I mean, I'd seen my dad come in and out of rehab several times, so I was afraid to, get my hopes up. Well, fast forward to the when I go home to visit. So here it is, like 9 months later, and by this time he's been sober about 6 months or so, thereabouts, whatever. But that same year, but he had white hair, and all white hair. When I left for boot camp, he had partial gray or whatever, but this right now he was all white hair. And I was joking with him. I was like, geez, Dad, how'd you get the white hair? And he said, let me tell you something. I'll tell you what happened. And he told me a story. And his story about what happened to him and why he got sober was very far-fetched. And I thought, man, this guy must have switched to getting high or something, because his story was so out of the norm. And I didn't believe it at first. But then at the end of that conversation, he said, in Alcoholics Anonymous, they tell us that we're not supposed to say we're never going to drink again. And he looked me dead in the eye. He said, but I know I'm never going to drink again. And I knew in that instant he was right. And so that was in 1980. And he is still sober to this day. And he's he is a spiritual leader. He's a spiritual advisor for many tribes. He is a healer. That's probably one of his greatest gifts. He's as a plant healer. And he's brought the language and the culture back to the reservation, to a reservation that had lost almost all of it. And
wow.
And now we're back to our powwows. Our culture has been re-energized, and this is happening in Indian country all the way around. But But anyway, so I watched my father. So what first became a disbelief in his story, but then a belief in his soberness. And I watched it because I'm still active duty. So I'm watching everything that's happening over time. And I've realized that, of course, at some point that story must have been true. You know, that must have really happened to him, because nothing else in his life had ever managed to help him stop drinking. And here he is making such a big impact, not only in our family, but everywhere else. So about 10 years away from that, I would say to him, Dad, let me tell you, why don't you tell people your story? And he said, I don't want to. So I would just ask him frequently, but I took notes, you see. I started taking notes a long time ago. And and it was perfect storm for how it ended up becoming in the book when it did, because I was going through my own healing. I was discovering how soothing the writing was, but I also was, I'm sorry, I shut it off. Oh,
that's okay. I had my dog come in, so we're good.
Oh, I know why. Okay. So I was healing, I was writing, and then the tribe let his position go as spiritual advisor. And he was undergoing a change as well. And I still ask him every couple of years, can I write your story? And then so finally I said, well, Dad, I said, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to write your story. Can I please tell your story? He said, yeah, it's time. And I was like, yay. And it really was so perfect, because I don't think I was in the right headspace to write it before. I don't think I had all the tools that I needed. And it was just a really good time to be able to write the story. But then, so I wrote the story, and I realized that it was lacking something. And so that's when I added a little bit of the history. I wanted people to understand more. Why are Native Americans a certain way, or, you know, at least our family or whatever, but why do certain people do certain things? And I had to add the history in. And then I was like, but it's still just kind of a story. And I thought, it needs me. It needs my perspective on everything. So I added that layer, and that's when I knew that I had a good book.
It is a good book. I have read the book.
Thank you.
I love the book. It is, it's such a, you almost feel like you're there, because you're so detailed in your writing. It's so descriptive, and I can picture things. And although I grew up in Wisconsin and I have family in Upper Michigan, the UP, I've never been to Minnesota though, and I've never, you know, been to a reservation. But I felt like I was there in some instances, because you are very descriptive.
Yes.
And like you said, once you kind of started telling your story, and because I knew you just a little bit, I didn't know, I still don't know you very well. We've only had a couple conversations via, you know, a video conference and a couple emails and maybe Facebook, I guess. But I felt like I got to know you a lot better. So I like that you write from a perspective of experience. I definitely resonate. That's how I write as well. I'm very much a conversationalist, and also write from my experiences. I teach that way. I coach that way. So it resonated very much with me. It was a very easy read.
Thank you.
Audience, I highly recommend you check out the book. You'll be fascinated. There's so much rich history in it. But then there's these stories. It's a little bit of Dianna. It's her dad. It's a really, really good read. And you don't feel like it's long and drawn out. You know, sometimes, especially with new writers, sometimes we want to throw everything in there, and it's not like that at all. It's sometimes you get to different points and you're like, well, I don't want to put it down, but I got to go cook dinner. You know, I want to keep reading, you know, so.
I've gotten that compliment. That means the most to me. Thank you so very much. And people who aren't readers who picked it up and couldn't put it down. That as an author, that is just one of the greatest compliments that you can receive.
Right.
It's been a joy to hear people talk about that, and thank you for saying that.
Well, and I like too when you released the book that you went back home. Mm-hmm. And you were doing different interviews, and you had your dad on one of them. And you know what? Darn it. He's a veteran. I should have had him on the show with you. I didn't even think. Dang it.
That's a very difficult thing to do because he doesn't have internet at his house.
Okay.
He doesn't even know how to text on the cell phone.
Gotcha.
But he can talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so I did like following when you did the release. I did like following your stories and your videos and stuff. That was pretty cool.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your author journey. Mm-hmm. Okay. So how was that? You mentioned it was a little bit difficult, but tell me about it. What was the most difficult?
I think the most difficult thing was realizing that it's not just getting the story on paper, and there's so much more to being an author. And I kind of did it a little backwards. I did know that like you helped me with the cover designer, and so but what I did was I wrote most of it, and then I realized that I needed probably an editor. And I was like, but how do I get an editor? And then, so I joined a writing group, and it was the writing group where I got so much information, but the story was written, the book was written. And actually, that's not true. That's not how it happened. I learned through people like you. And so I connected with a few key people that helped me figure out the editor, the cover design, the formatting. I had a very good friend who published several of her daughter's books. So I reached out to her, and I had these key people that my team, they became so important to me that to get it all done. And then I hit publish, because one of the things that I realized was that honestly, I just didn't want to spend the time. This sounds so terrible, but I didn't want to spend the time to try to sell my book to a publisher. And the reason I chose not to is because, and this sounds a little hoity-toity, but my book was good, and I knew that. And I knew that if the publisher was the only reason to get a publisher was to publish the book, I could do that.
Right.
If I went to a regular publisher and needed to do the marketing as well, I might as well do that here. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I realized that indie publishing then was the way for me to go. And that's why my team became super important. It was after I published that I joined the writing groups and realized that I could have done things a lot easier.
Right.
Pulling pieces together, because I was fortunate enough to have people in my network, but not everybody does. So the biggest thing that I learned was that if I would have done research ahead of time, I would have had an easier go of the whole process. That was my biggest thing.
Right. My story is similar to yours.
Yeah.
I was the only difference. I chose to do the self-publishing as well because, and I've brought this up several times on the show, and people are probably sick of me saying my mentor, but it's true. I was very fortunate that I have a mentor who's written 120 books at this point, probably more now, because she writes so much. Nice. But she's been doing it for over 20 years. She has honed her craft. Mm-hmm. You know, when they talk about, Olympians and experts in fields, they say 10,000 hours, gets you on the path to become the expert. You got to put that time in. Well, 20 plus years, she's put the time in. She's honed her craft. Right. So I had the benefit of talking with her. My mistake was I didn't want to bother her. So I never talked to her. I would talk to her every Sunday for months at church. We both stood her husband's a youth minister, and we would stand outside the doors checking children in and that kind of stuff. And we would talk, and I would never ask her about the books because I knew, because she's well known, everybody asks her, and I didn't want to be that person.
Yeah.
And she couldn't speak at a woman's retreat. And she said, hey, I know you're trying to build your business, vision to purpose, and you've talked about wanting to do more speaking engagements. I have one for you. I want you to take this. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll do it. And it was at that women's retreat where the topic was, how did God capture your heart? So my books are based on Christian books, women Bible studies, that kind of thing. So I speak at this church, and the women come up to me afterwards and say, hey, you need to write a book. And if you don't write the book, you need to go talk to your friend Christy and have her write the book.
Aww.
So I didn't say a word. I go back to church. I say nothing. She said, how did the event go? I said, oh, it went fine. And I didn't tell her what they said. So about a month later, she says, hey, I just got word that you're supposed to write a book. You didn't tell me anything about it. So are you going to write the book? And I said, well, they also said that if I didn't want to do it, you could do it. And she said, I can't write your book. You have to write your book. So, but then she gave me all of this advice. So I was so blessed to have 20 plus years of advice just handed to me.
Yeah.
And she said, you have a couple of options. You can go traditional publishing, because she traditionally publishes as well. Mm-hmm. She has an agent, the whole bit. And she says, but here's the thing. If you go traditional and you get that publisher, you don't have as much control. They'll do your book design. They'll do all of this other stuff for you. And you probably won't see the book published for 2 more years. She says, can you wait? And, so we ran through all that stuff. And after having the conversation, I said, well, is it bad to self-publish? And she said, no, I typically self-publish, and I've been self-publishing for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
She says she'll still do a couple things, but she says, I write so fast that they can't keep up with me at this point.
Wow.
So I pick and choose what I want traditionally published, and then I publish those, on my own, right, different series. So it really depends on what you want to do. Do you want to write a lot of books, and how fast will you write them? Or do you want, to pick up a traditional publisher, let them handle those things, get into certain platforms that you need a traditional publisher for? That's your research. That's some of the things you're going to have to do, folks. If you want to get on certain platforms, I'm not talking your Amazons or your Barnes and Noble. I'm talking about dedicated sites. In my case, there's some Christian sites that you have to have a traditional publisher. They don't take self-publishing. You just got to know what you want to write, and where you want it to land. And then you can, even traditionally published, you can still be on Amazon, and you can go wide, they call it, on the different platforms like the Barnes and Nobles, the Apples and the Googles and all that kind of stuff. So that's, some things to think about. But I'm with you, Dianna. I like the self-publishing. I like having a little bit more control. Mm-hmm. I need to learn more of the marketing side, so I probably need to pick your brain. Mm-hmm. And I'm bringing a lot of people on. Next week we have Dave Chesson coming on from Kindlepreneur.
Oh, I love
it. So you got to catch that show, because that's what he specializes in, marketing for authors, and gives so much information to us. So I'm glad he's coming on. He's also former Navy. So anyway, I won't give away that show without him even being here to talk about it.
Oh, that's awesome, though. I definitely learned a lot from him.
Yes, mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. And I have shown some of the tools that I recommend for authors. So friends out there, if you haven't seen that episode, check it out. I have a whole list of tools that really help with the promotion. Book funnel. We had Damon Courtney on, and he talked about book funnel. I use that all the time. I don't know if you use that, Dianna.
Not yet.
Book funnel is amazing, because that's where you can collaborate with other authors and push your book out with a lot of people. It's great for newsletter building, and it's great for sales. It's a promotion based type thing. So if you haven't used that, I highly recommend that for marketing. book brush is great for creating ads and stuff. So again, I won't get sidetracked because we're not talking about that right now. But yeah, so definitely agree with you on the self-publishing. I like a little more control.
Yeah,
And,
I was like, it took me this long to write the book. I don't want to wait any longer. I know if plus I was able to pick my dates. You know, I completed I did the pre-sale on my mom's birthday, and I opened it up for sale on Father's Day. I'm a very traditional girl in a lot of ways, and I love the synchronicity of that. That's, you know, I love things like that.
So before I jump into the next question, I did want to go back a little bit, because until I got to know you, I didn't know you were a Native American Indian. So what is your background? And then you grew up on a reservation, so tell us a little bit about that, because I want to make sure the audience knows what you bring to the table. Besides the military side, you have this rich culture, and I think it's great.
So my family is from, we're registered in the Boys Fort Band of Chippewa. It's the reservation, the village is called Net Lake. And it's probably about the size of a city block, and very tiny, very small. So but we have a very high percentage of veterans. I mean, the national Native Americans as a whole are the highest per capita that enlist in or that join the military. They just do. There's a lot of them that do. And I think it's because of their warrior spirit, to be quite frank. I mean, they're just so used to, you know, they're used to that. And I ended up being, I'm the first woman to retire from the military. I'm also the highest ranking woman to come out of Net Lake. And I was the first Native American chief in the United States Navy, which I think that is
awesome. That is so awesome.
So we grew up there. My dad, like I said, he was in the Navy. So he took us to Virginia. There was a time that he got out and we went to California, but he was a part of there was an Indian Relocation Act. And that was my family participated in that. And so we went to California for a while. And then we went to Great Lakes. So, but he ended up getting out due to his alcoholism. And but that time that we spent outside the reservation, so I've always walked 2 paths, you know, so when I was very, very young, we were, you know, with the grandparents, and the familial unit was definitely solid. And then, you know, we'd go away for all those years, but we came home almost every ricing season, which is September of every year. It's an extremely important cultural event. Net Lake has the world's finest wild rice. I say that with zero question and zero hesitation. And so we would go home ricing every year, and it's still to this day a very big deal for our tribe. And so every September, I would actually start school. We would all start school in Net Lake for that month, and then we'd transfer into our regular schools wherever we were at. And in that month, I was able to just really absorb so much. You know, really it was family, but all the other significant events that one can have while you're home for 30 days. You know, and establish friends, and you know. We didn't have the convenience of Facebook or anything back then, but, you know, we got to see each other once a year, and it was fantastic. And, but then when my dad got out and we went back home, I was 15. Was I 15? No, I was 12. And you notice how I'm having all these issues with the numbers? Going on with that. But anyway, but I'm noticing it. Anyway, I'm fairly young, you know, but so back to the reservation, but I brought with me all the things that I'd learned on the outside. So I was much more, I was shy, but I could also speak in public, or not in public, but I could speak to people. So I've always walked these 2 paths. And then, you know, when I started, so when I'm home, I do things to this day, like make sure that I clean up after my dad. And, but here I have a maid. Do you know what I mean? there's so many differences between the reservation and the not reservation, and just so many. But I've always walked both paths. That's kind of what I like to think of it as.
Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah, right.
It's just been with me to this morning, and I don't know what that is, but
Allergies, probably. Pollen so high.
yeah, I'm sure you're right. It's just a little tickle, and that is allergies. Yeah. But anyway, so the other part of it is that I put on my author profile on Amazon because part of what I included in the book, the history of of a lot of people don't know Native history, and I'm 13/16 Ojibwe Indian, but most people don't understand that we have to be registered and our blood quantum has to be documented, and there's all kinds of things that I could have put into the book, but I'm saving some, of course, for other works, but because I didn't want it to become a big thick history book. I didn't want to take from the story. I needed it to add to the story. And so I really appreciate being able to share Native American history because I think it's important. And I think that people in general, well, we should know about each other,
Right, right. So will you write more books from that perspective, or will you do other things, or both? What's on the horizon for Dianna?
Well, I haven't decided. Blue-Eyed Chippewa is my story. And then Daughter of Boarding School Indians is my mom's story. And I haven't figured, I'm currently working on both, okay. And I haven't decided which one I'm going to publish first. That's something that I'll know that answer in a couple of weeks, I think.
Right. What is your process for writing books? Do you make a list? Do you write things down? Are you a researcher? You gather all your research and kind of put it to the side till you're ready? What's your process?
My process, because this is a fairly new thing for me, right? So what happened with the last book, but I liked it and it worked well. So I'm going to try to do the same thing. I was keeping notes from my dad's story for a long time. So when it came time to write the story, I was like, how do I package this? How do I write this into a book, this one story? And so I basically realized, well, they need to know where he's coming from. They need to know where he came from. They need to know where I came from. So I kind of did basically a brainstorm session with a rough outline, a very rough outline. And that rough outline was enough to guide me to what I needed to include. But as I wrote, then I would just, and I found one thing that was a very big deal for me. I need complete quiet when I write. I mean, I can't write with soft music, the sounds of the ocean, natural. Because I wrote the majority of this in Costa Rica after my experience, and because I was in complete flow. And when, as a writer, when you are sitting there and when you're in flow, you can feel everything move so naturally and so beautifully. And it just feels so good. That's when you're doing good things. And that's when you're on the right track, So it's everything in life, but as a writer, especially, the words everything just comes out like that. And so what I noticed back then is that the sounds of the ocean are extremely soothing to me. And then having that other quiet, there was nothing else. And so my approach includes having the outline and then having the environment. And when I have the two together, and then it allows me to see things that I can, okay, that chapter doesn't go here, this goes here. And then I just kind of maneuver as I go. I don't know what the term for that is, but I think that's how I do it.
Do you write without stopping and then go back and do the editing? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've been told from my mentor and then my own experiences, because I tend to be a perfectionist, not in everything, I'm not that bad, everybody. But when it comes to my writing, I spent so much time early on, many, many years ago, writing, and I would stop, fix it, stop, fix it, stop. you never get anywhere.
Right.
And my mentor, and especially for me, my mentor said, just get it out on paper, write it. It doesn't even need to make sense. Just get it all out. And then you have something to work with.
Absolutely. And, you know, I was like that in the Navy too. I remember joking with my LPO one time when I'd already decided to get out, and we were writing a point paper, and he gave me his first draft, and then we were on a time crunch or something, so I ended up sitting right next to him on the computer, and I was telling him what to change as we were doing so we can get it out. And I said, I'm really going to miss this. He said, what's that? I said, me telling you what to write and you just doing it. But I realized in that moment that I need the rough draft. And so because I knew that from my Navy days, that kind of came naturally with the book. You know, get that first done, get whatever it is.
Do you think being in the Navy helped you be a better author?
Yeah, especially from that point of view, because it allowed me to actually do it. You see, I think a lot of writers, a lot of authors, or a lot of would-be authors, they're afraid. They're not exactly sure. For one, most people are, who's going to want to hear their story? Who would read what they want to write? There's so much the internal fear that goes on with even starting, you know, and picking up the computer keypad or whatever it is you're going to be working on. But I think that when you start and you realize that you're doing it for you, you have to do it for you. You have to. It is absolutely irrelevant who reads it, absolutely irrelevant what they think about it. But most of us don't know that when we go in there.
Right.
You know, right. I remember when I first started, I had a lot of pressures on myself because I knew about online marketing. When I drafted up the introduction, I used the introduction as the lead magnet to create my email list. And so all they had to do was sign up and they would get the introduction to the book. I got such great feedback from that introduction that I was afraid of writing the rest, because I'm like, what if I don't do as well with everything else? Oh my gosh. You know, we put pressures on ourselves. And then I think the original question was, do I think the Navy helped me? Absolutely, because I knew what method worked for me, because I had all that other stuff that was in play. You know, and I think it's normal. I think it's normal for us to have those worries and have those fears, and you have to decide what your goal is in it too. Like for me, I think people need to read this story. I think it provides, you have some of the feedback that I've gotten with regard to how it's made a decision to do something different, or how it's gotten them out of depression, or how, I can't make any claims whatsoever, but I am blown away by how many people it's helped already. And it's not a self-help book, not by any means, you know, but it gives people hope. And for me, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that they read all of it and understand all of it for what it is. It is a story of hope. It's a story of inspiration. It's a story of love. It's a story of forgiveness. It's a story of redemption. I mean,
it folks, it's jam-packed with so much goodness. She's not kidding when she says that. She's not, you know, she wants you to read the book, but I'm telling you, knowing her heart, it's not that she's trying to sell you this book. She's telling you there is just such goodness in it. It really does cover a lot of different areas. It really does. Okay, so this is the last question.
Okay.
So what advice would you give other military members or veterans who want to write a book? I know you kind of already gave some, but how should they go about it? What do you think is the best tip you can give them for moving forward?
Decide. And that sounds so simple, but a true decision comes with is followed up with actions. And the actions that I believe one should take are do some research, decide that you're going to write first. That is the biggest thing, is you're going to get it out no matter what. And because your story is important, the world needs to hear your story. The world needs to hear your voice. Whatever subject it is, fiction, nonfiction, whatever, the world needs it. Somebody needs it. So once you make the decision, then I would join the writers groups first and learn about things before you decide to go down the path, or while you're writing. I like to kind of time block my time. So if I take writing time, sometimes I'll say I'm going to write this whole week, and I'll have great flow. Sometimes I'll say I'm just going to write, in the mornings, and in the afternoon I spend my time marketing. Well, spend your time researching or learning, just learning about the process, so that you are better prepared for how you're going to handle it once your manuscript is done. Because getting the manuscript done and then trying to figure it out just causes a little bit of stress if you can do it along the way.
Right.
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing is decision, and then follow it up with the actions.
I agree. That's a great tip. You got to make the decision to do it. Just say, I'm going to do it, and move forward. And even if you can't write, I have found, like you said, do research that day. If you can't, I don't know about anybody else, but I can't write every day. There's just days where the words flow, like you said, they just come out. I know exactly what I'm going to say, and I can write 10,000 words in a sitting, and then there's days where it's like, I've been on this sentence for 2 hours, and that's when I know, okay, you need to stop and do some research. So you still feel like you're moving forward. You're not stopping, but you just know it's not a writing day today, So, well, Dianna, thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to put up your information again. So you can find her on her website. And remember, her book is called Warrior Spirit Rising, and there's the website for that. And on her website, it'll take you right to where you can buy the book at the different places. So please, friends, check her out. You will not regret it. You'll love the story. And then sign up for her newsletter, or however your contact is, so you can see what she's going to share next. I know I'm excited about that. I'm looking forward to the next books. So
thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time, and it was quite a joy.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'll have to have you on another time with the follow-on book. So
sounds good to me. Gotta get that thing done.
Yes. So thank you so much, Dianna. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.
Well, friends, you got some really good information from Dianna. I'm glad you tuned in. If you're catching this on replay, no worries. Just go back to the beginning, watch the replay, listen for her tips. And then if you have questions, just put them in the comment section. We'll see those and we'll respond. If you have a topic that you want us to talk about, or even an author, do you have an author you want us to bring on the show? Let us know. We can do that. But we won't know to do that if you don't tell us. So please share with us. We want to hear from you. All right. And with that, I say next week, tune in. We're going to have Dave Chesson from Kindlepreneur on. He was in the Navy, and he's going to tell you all about that. And same time, 11 a.m. So don't miss it next Thursday. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in.